and welcome to another episode of Goddess Hangs.
Episode 35.
Woo!
35?
35.
Ooh, we're growing up.
We're growing up. We're in our mid-30s now.
It's
Surprise.
time to think about maybe some life insurance.
I was going to say, having a family.
Oh.
We actually did grow our Goddess Hangs family this week. Boo. She's sleeping with her head all lifted up. We have a new intern helping us out.
We're calling her our goddess helper.
Our goddess helper. Shout out
to Miss Anna Lynn. Hi, Anna Lynn. We are obsessed with you. We love you so much. She is helping us, and it's so great.
Oh my gosh. It's so exciting, and we're so thankful. So, at 35, we finally started, growing our family.
We did. Our family is growing. It's 2 women, 2 cats, my dad producing, and
yes.
Anna Lynn.
Anna Lynn, another woman.
The team has grown.
So we're very excited about that. So shout out to Anna Lynn. We're so grateful. She's going to be helping us out a lot behind the scenes. So when you see our Instagram looking even bigger and better and more posts, you have her to thank. And she's going to be helping us with some other behind the scenes stuff. And we're just so freaking grateful.
Yay! And when this, speaking of magical things, because Anna Lynn is a magical person addition to all of our lives. When this episode airs, we're going to be in Vegas.
We will be in Vegas when this airs. We're about to leave in a few days as we're recording this.
Yeah, we leave on Sunday and we're driving in, and we are working again, we mentioned last week, at the Magic Fashion Expo for 2 days in Las Vegas.
So make sure, if you're listening to this episode like right away when it comes out, make sure you're following us, because we'll be posting a lot on our Instagram stories, probably on all of ours. So at Goddess Hangs, at I am Sadie Olson,
at Juliet.Piper.
And make sure you're following with our Vegas adventure. Boo is killing me right now. She's so cute.
At Boobies McGee Olson.
Gotta start her Instagram.
Doesn't have a page yet.
It's gonna get flagged for inappropriate. Like, no, it's just a cat. There's no actual boobies. Okay, so we have the most amazing, I know we say this every time we have a guest, but we have the most amazing guest this week.
Yeah.
She is a witch. She is the High Priestess of Hades. She's just a magical being, and she taught us so much about the divine masculine, about what working with Hades as a deity is like. We talk about death and the underworld. It's just the whole time me and Juliet are just wow.
I had so many questions.
I know, we could have talked to her for 3 hours, but we had to cut it off at an hour for our producer. So without further ado, Ms. Angelica Cresci. Da, 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 da.
Welcome to Goddess Hangs.
Thank you so much. I'm pumped to be here. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. So you are our first witch that we get to talk to, working specifically with a deity. We haven't talked really at all on the pod about working with someone specific. Obviously, witchcraft has been weaved in here and there. So I'm super excited to kind of just ask you, what's your origin story? How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my journey with paganism and with specifically working with the deity, I work with Hades, who's the lord of the underworld of the Greek pantheon. And it started really young. I wasn't pagan. I hadn't found paganism until I was in my teens. But I always, my connection with Hades started straight from the beginning. I would have he was my imaginary friend when I was a child, and I would have these.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would see this shadowy figure in my bedroom when I was really, really little, and I just always knew he was there to protect me. Which is interesting because this figure always had a helmet on, and this plays into Hades's myth, because Hades, in the Titan war, when he was defeating, Kronos and all the other Titans that were warring against him, he had this helmet made for him that made him invisible to all gods and humans, basically. And it was so weird that I would see this helmeted shadowy figure in my room, because I think he was trying to remain invisible and watch over me, because the helmet makes him invisible. But I was able to perceive it because I was probably such a little kid.
So you saw this before knowing anything about Hades.
Yes.
And then later you were like, oh, that man with a helmet in my home
Yes.
was in fact Hades.
What an interesting, of all of the imaginary friends you could have, Hades, Lord of the Underworld.
Yes.
I was like, I'm gonna hang around this girl.
So did you share about your imaginary friend with your family and friends? Like, did they know about this strange helmeted figure in your life?
Yeah. So my mom definitely knew, and I haven't asked her like if she remembers this. I should probably call her up and be like, "Hey, Mom, do you remember like this imaginary friend?" But I do remember telling her about it, and yeah. So funny. I don't think anyone else really knew. I think I would just tell her, but I would reveal it in moments like, I remember watching The Corpse Bride when I was like a really little kid. Like, I think it came out in like 2004 or whatever. And I think I was like 6 or 7 at that point. And I was watching The Corpse Bride and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I resonate with this movie. Like I resonate with the underworld being like, you know, colorful. And I just remember like sobbing like in the theater, like, because my sister is a little bit older than me. So I tagged along with her and my parents. And I was like sobbing in the movie theater. And my mom was like, what happened? Or is the movie scaring you? And I'm like, no, this is me. Like I am the Corpse Bride or like someone that is from the underworld. Like, and I was like 6 or 7.
Gosh.
And so they knew like kind of that I had this strange connection to the underworld. And then they would start to read me like maybe when I was, 7, 8, 9, they would start to read me the Greek myths. And it's funny because I was always afraid of water for some reason. I'm like a huge Capricorn, like earth-based person. And so I just always hated water, and I would hate like taking a shower, I'd hate bathing. I don't know what it was. I was just like, I don't want anywhere near the water. And the only way that they could get me to like take a shower or like go anywhere near water was to read me like Greek myths while I was in there, or like play like an audio tape of like Greek myths. And so that's kind of, I remember like being in the bath like when I was a kid and hearing about the myths and just being like, yeah, this is just me. Like I resonate with this so hardcore. Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So do you think do you know, did you live a past life like within the time frames where these Greek myths were being formed, or like how do you think that connection was based? Obviously Hades is like a protector, a deep connection for you. You're now a High Priestess of Hades, which I can't wait to dig into, but like how do you think this came to be? Do you know, or do you have a intuitive thought about it?
Yeah, I've never been asked if I thought it was a past life, and I've never really considered it to this point, which is so interesting. Like, why haven't I considered that I might have had a past life in ancient Greece? It's so funny because I feel like for me, when I channel past lives for my clients, or when I do past life regression, for me, I feel like it's pretty difficult to go too far back. I feel like the way, at least that I understand reincarnation, it's like we have, maybe clusters of lives, like, maybe 3 lives here, 3 lives there. And then they're spaced with, eons of time. And so it totally could be that I had, past lives in ancient Greece. Hades wasn't really venerated very much in ancient times because he was very feared. Even then, they believed that like if they spoke his name, like if they said Hades, he would kind of show up and like whisk them away to the underworld. And so they ended up calling him like Phonic Zeus instead of Hades, and Phonic means like underworld. And so it's so interesting that they would just call him like Zeus of the underground, because they were a little bit too afraid. So there weren't like a ton of priests or a ton of people that really worked with Hades back then. But yeah, I think that'd be so cool. I love that.
I just like have so many questions about this. I'm like,
I know, I do too. Can I ask something so random?
Yeah.
So as you're talking, I got this extremely strong vision of a golden like wheel that spins and turns, and there's like Greek writing on it. Ooh. Is that something in mythology, like the wheel that I felt like I was spinning, and maybe this is out there, but if it comes to you, let me know. It's like, it's a big
I feel like my book about it
goes in a circle, it's spinning.
I have a big book of mythology, and it has like Greek, Roman, and some other It starts with a B, and I feel like there's like that image on the front.
There's
I'll show
something
you
with
later.
the big gold
We'll put a
spinning.
picture of it here if it matches.
Yeah, or if your book looks like that,
Yeah.
let me know.
Wow.
Okay, but so, oh my gosh, you're the High Priestess of Hades.
Okay, yes. So let's go back. So when did you figure out that your imaginary friend who you've been hanging out with for ever since you can remember, kind of, how did it come to be that you were like, oh, this is Hades, and start working and kind of, I guess, forming your pagan practice? Is that how you'd say it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I was maybe like 13 or 14, maybe a little bit younger even, I was kind of exposed to paganism, I guess you could say. I would watch like YouTube videos about it, and I was just super interested. I would read all my sister's like hand-me-down like teen witch books, like her like Silver Raven Wolf like kind of literature. And we lived really close to Salem. We lived like literally 10-20 minutes away from Salem. That's where I grew up in Massachusetts. And so we would always go there. My dad's like a local historian, so he would go for like the marine life, interest, the historical interest, that kind of thing. And so I'd always get kind of dragged to these events, and I'd always been like, can we go to like the tarot store, the witch store, like after this? And he was always like, I guess. And so yeah, and so that's kind of how I found paganism. Like, okay, this is a thing people do. People work with the Greek gods, or, not necessarily Greek gods. People work with all sorts of pantheons, Norse, Egyptian, really, really, it goes on and on. And yeah, I think personified deity work was like one of the first things I heard about when I was learning about witchcraft and learning about paganism. And I was like, ooh, yeah, like I want to work on that right away. Like before we do anything, before we cast spells, I was like, I need to just talk to like the gods. Like I just felt such a connection to it. And I didn't make that connection right away that like Hades was my imaginary friend. Hades had been following me around. But whenever I heard people saying like, oh, just go with the myths you love the most and kind of start there and interview the gods and see if maybe there's a connection there, I immediately was like, okay, I love Hades and Persephone myth. I love all the myths of the underworld. So I have to start interviewing there. And I ended up talking to a couple other gods. I talked to Odin. I talked to Loki. It was so funny that the Norse pantheon was coming in for me too when I was interviewing like the gods, I guess you could say. And they were like, Odin didn't really care for me, which was fine. Loki was trying to convince me that like I was perfect for him. He's like, I'm just like Hades. Like, and this is like, he's not really just like Hades, but Loki's a trickster god. So he'll tell you anything you want to hear. Loki. Yeah, he'll tell you anything you want to hear. And I just remember sitting in a meditation where I was trying to connect with Hades. And this was like before I learned about like casting circles and stuff like that. And Loki was in there and all these like entities were showing up. And I was like, okay, we got to close this out and reconnect. And so then I, centered. And I think this was maybe when I was like 15 or 16, I finally contacted Hades, like just him. And it was this overwhelming initial connection. Like I physically felt like items in my room moving around me. I was like feeling like a wind vortex almost. I could see like, I had like a vision in my mind's eye of like a mine being like in like a mine shaft and kind of going into the underworld. It was pretty scary, I have to say, just being so young and like being very inexperienced witch and having that sort of a spiritual experience. But that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, I have to stop interviewing everyone else, stop talking to everyone else, and just focus my energy on Hades. And I really haven't stopped. My energy is still on Hades for the most part.
So how does one begin communicating with Hades, with a deity, through meditation? Like, what does that process look like for you?
Yeah. So I would definitely start out with casting a circle or doing some sort of, barrier protection method. Some people like to throw salt on their thresholds or, have a method of protection, because what happened to me the first time with Loki and all these other entities coming in was just because I was like totally open. And so that's definitely the first step. And then, I would say just set the intention that you are going to meet with this deity. And it might not happen at first. It might take quite a few meditations to really bridge the connection. It tends to be like masculine deities like Hades and, Zeus and like other deities like that are a little bit less shy. They tend to, I feel like masculine in general energy just tends to come in hotter and sooner for people that I work with. And so sometimes the goddess connection, I feel like, can take a while, can be a little bit more subtle, whereas the masculine just like pops right into the meditation, just this feeling of presence just kind of consumes you and you're like, yes, this is here. And I would also, another tip I would say is to call the deity by like their truest name or list off a couple of names, because sometimes like trickster entities will pretend that they're like, yeah, I'll be Lord Hades for you or whatever. And if you're not specific enough. So what I like to say in all of my, whenever I like invoke Hades or anything like that for my ritual group, I always say like the truest Lord Hades, the Lord Hades that is my patron, that is my father, like all that kind of stuff. And it really weeds out the other entities that might be coming in. So yeah, that kind of thing.
So protection, be specific. It's kind of typical for anything within, the spiritual practice, I feel.
Yeah.
My understanding, which is small, has always been that like Hades was a really bad guy. And Hades,
I was just thinking of like the cartoon Hercules.
Like you don't usually hear rave reviews about Hades. So, but I noticed on your beautiful Instagram, you talk a lot about like lessons that Hades can teach us, and like, all sorts of other perspectives and things about that. And so that's something I would love to learn from you, because like I know nothing other than that he was like the bad guy in the Disney movie, and then the story about like Persephone, and that's really like my understanding. But I love that you have these other viewpoints. Yeah. So like what has Hades taught you? What can Hades teach us?
For sure. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the Hades and Persephone myth, because it's a real polarizing thing. And I always like to talk about it. I have like a Hades ritual group for devotees of Hades and people that are like curious about it. And most of them are like already kind of like him and already go into it, with the intention of really enjoying his energy. But I do like to bring up the myth with them and kind of talk about it, because I've met people online and in person that really dislike Hades and hate the myth and think he's, kind of like a bad guy, like, that he hurt Persephone. And I totally, like, I want to draw attention to it, because I don't agree with the interpretation that he did nothing wrong. And I don't really agree with the interpretation that he did everything wrong. I like to keep a very like nuanced view of the myth and be like, yes, he was totally in the wrong. Demeter was totally in the wrong. And Persephone was kind of the victim of both in a way, and had her own story of transformation from these two people that were basically like controlling her. And the story, I'll like go through it briefly.
Yeah, I was gonna say a quick summary for everyone.
Quick summary, exactly. Basically, the story is that Persephone is the goddess of spring. She was a child of Demeter and Zeus, and she wasn't really like, kept with the rest of the gods. She's not an Olympian. She's kind of like the daughter of the two Olympian gods. And so she's kind of a lesser goddess, not very important before she married Hades. And yeah, she was just the goddess of flowers in springtime, and Demeter kept a really close watch over her. And her name before she met Hades was actually Kore. And that's like her maiden form is her as Kore, and that's what her mother called her. And then when she met Hades, she transformed and she became Persephone. And that's actually when she took on her name, like the title Persephone, and the queen of the underworld. And so basically what happened is Demeter kept her away from all the other gods. And one day Hades had caught a glimpse of her in a field. He had his helm of invisibility on, and he was just kind of surveying the earth, because he is the god of like precious metals and fertility to some extent, as far as like the earth and crops and that kind of thing. Like he has his role in that, just as Demeter has her role in harvesting and fertility and that kind of thing. And so he was surveying the land and he saw Persephone picking flowers and he was like, I have to marry her. And so he went to Zeus, his brother, and was like, hey, can I have your daughter's hand in marriage? And he was like, yeah, sure, cool, whatever. But Demeter's not going to have it. So you might want to kind of do it without Demeter knowing. And so this is when...
So Persephone was Hades' niece?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll overlook that. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, no, all of the pantheons really, like, I can't think of one pantheon where there's not like weird incestual relationships, but the gods are like, you know, marred from that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry to throw you off. Okay,
fine.
Go on.
Yeah, and so anyway, so that's when Hades was like, okay, I have to take her without Demeter knowing because she's never going to let me have her. And so I'm going to sweep her up. And so he comes out of the underworld one day with his horse-drawn carriage and just kind of plops her out of the field and throws her in and takes her to the underworld. And this is where it gets kind of, you know, like, okay, Hades absolutely kind of shouldn't have done that. But then at the same time, Demeter shouldn't have let Persephone never see any of the other gods, never marry, never, you know, be just this maiden forever. And this is where Persephone gets to have her own story of like, she takes on a brand new name, she takes on a new job. And eventually what happens is she ends up eating food in the underworld because she's in there for quite a long time before Demeter and Zeus, like, and Hades all have a council and decide that, you know, they're going to kind of decide her fate. You know, she's in the underworld for probably months before they realized this. And so she ended up eating food of the underworld. She ate pomegranates, or pomegranate seeds. And Zeus was like, wait a second, when they were having the council, he's like, wait a second, Persephone ate food of the underworld, which makes her now part of the underworld. So she can't be with Demeter, you know, she can't return to Demeter. She has to stay partially with Hades, partially with Demeter. And that's why we have seasons, because she's like the goddess of spring and flowers and lushness. And so when she goes to the underworld in October, that's Salem. And then when she comes out, you know, in the springtime, that's when we have spring in the 4 seasons. So that's like the reason the myth, you know, is kind of cast is to explain the seasons for the ancients.
Oh my God, I love that. I didn't know that.
No.
I love that. Yeah. So then going a little deeper, like what is Hades? What did I ask before? What are some of like the lessons that you've like learned with Hades? What is working with him?
Yeah, absolutely. So he rules over quite a bit, being the god of the underworld. He has like a lot of different domains. So obviously death, you know, dead people coming to him. He's not necessarily the god of death. That's Thanatos, but he's called the all receiver. So he basically receives all of the souls in the underworld. They cross the river Styx, they come into his realm, and he basically assesses their life along with other judges of the underworld, other gods and people that judge the life of mortals and kind of see where they're going to go. And he places them into certain realms of the underworld, depending on how they lived. And so he ends up being the god of fate in a way, because he sees every single day people coming to the underworld, having to be judged, having to be either put in the highest level, which is like heaven, or the lower levels, which are like, you know, the pits of Tartarus. It's like the kind of hellscape. And so he knows a lot about what makes a really good mortal life. He's seen thousands and millions and billions of people live a life. And so how he shows up for me mostly is he's very, I guess obsessed is a good word for him to describe the way he comes in. He's very obsessed with me living the life that I want to live, the life that my soul like desires to do, and also like fulfilling my fate. And so he's given me a very good set of things to accomplish in this lifetime, like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 things that he absolutely has to have me do. And then the rest of that, he's like, follow your desire, live life to the fullest, because I don't want to see you upset when you come to the underworld. I don't want to have to put you in a place that you don't want to be put. And so it's just, he's like the god of like, you know, he's the god of the dead in a way, but he's kind of the god of the living in the way that he wants us to have the best life possible so we can also live a good life when we're in the underworld. It kind of just karmically works out that way.
That's so cool.
I saw something about you had written that he's helpful with boundaries. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. This goes back into the myth with him and Persephone and Demeter, because he essentially gave Persephone this opportunity to finally like set boundaries with her mom. And I think that sometimes when we have like a traumatic experience where we have to set boundaries with someone that's toxic, and for Persephone, Demeter was a fairly toxic figure in her life, you know, like this kind of narcissistic, like overbearing figure. And basically Hades gave her the opportunity to finally set the boundary. He took her to the underworld and was like, okay, I'm forcing you to finally talk to your mom about the things that you need to discuss with her. And that's what Hades does in people's lives. If you let him in and ask him for assistance with boundaries, he's really great at it. But kind of like the death card in the tarot, you know, it always ends up being really sudden. It always comes in maybe in a way that you don't want it to. I feel like he's a great exemplification of the death card, because it's like that quick transformational energy that you can't really control. And so when you like let him in your life and ask him, hey, I need help with boundaries, or I need help with understanding my fate, sometimes it kind of comes in these quick dirty ways. And that's exactly essentially how he took Persephone to the underworld. And that's the criticism of his myth, is like, you know, how he was not very gentle and how he just kind of whisked her away. And I think that we can learn from that, and we can take these experiences that we have that are maybe traumatic, or maybe, you know, not as gentle as we want them to be, or relationships with people in our lives that are maybe not as gentle as we want them to be, and transform them into a situation that we can have control over and that we can have decisions over. And so that's one of the main things I feel like he assists with.
That's real life. Like when you want something to change, it's not going to happen in a slow, pretty way. You, most of the time, you've got to just pull the plug or flip the switch, or whatever. I also love, you know, I don't know, I personally just see so much about the divine feminine, tapping into the divine feminine, and you talk a lot about the divine masculine. So I want to hear more about how you are teaching women to work with the divine masculine, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that the divine masculine is so underrated. It's such a powerful energy, and it's really easy to access. I feel like working with the goddess and feminine energy is it's a lot more difficult. I don't know. I feel like I'd rather just, I mean, you have to have both, but I'd rather just tap into that masculine energy, that energy of vitality and structure, and like, you know, projecting yourself out into the world, and that just like radical immediacy of like doing something and having just being very action driven. I just love that energetic, and that's exactly what the divine masculine is. And like every time you do a candle spell, you know, the candle is like fairly phallic symbol, and I feel like fire really makes sense to me as a correspondence for the divine masculine. So every time you do a candle spell, like you're accessing the divine masculine energy, even if you're calling in goddesses, or you're kind of doing it from this space of feminine energy. And so we're just taking it a step further, you know, in my clients, my world, we're taking it a step further, and we're accessing the divine masculine all the time on a daily basis, really building that connection with him so that we can have more transformation in our life, because it's a very quick transformational energy, just like candle magic is. So we're taking that and we're just blowing it up, you know, turning up the dial on it, and changing our lives quickly, quantum leaping. That kind of energy is really associated with the divine masculine.
Yeah, it's so important to have the balance, but I just think there's so much focus about learning about how to be more in your feminine, which it's really important, because I mean our society is very like generally masculine driven, like go but I think we talk about the divine feminine, and then it's like the masculine, and not embracing like, but what does the divine masculine look like? Like, what does it look like when it's approached in like a yummy, juicy way versus the like exhausting way?
Yeah.
Right. Masculinity divine masculine. I love that because I will say, dipping my toes in this world, I think I am more divinely masculine in the way I do things.
Yeah.
And it's always been like, no, it's like,
I think we are about, I'm a little more divine feminine and you're a little more divine masculine. Because I'll like get this idea and I'm like, Juliet, what if we did this? And she's like, done, I did it.
Sadie's like, here's the idea. I will receive it now.
Yeah.
And look at the ocean.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Make a good team.
I love hearing it in that. And there, you know what? There's divine aspects of masculinity and femininity, and there's not so divine aspects of both.
For sure.
So this is refreshing to hear. You mentioned you work with your clients with like the divine masculine and Hades. Can you give us like a sneak peek into like what it looks like would you call yourself a coach or or just the high priestess, or how does that work? And like, what is it like to work with you?
Yeah, for sure. So I do read tarot. That's kind of my main modality for all this. So right now tarot, I would say, drives my session. So I would call myself a tarot consultant if I had to kind of like give my title at the bank or something like that. I'm a tarot reader, tarot consultant, and I use the tarot and astrology essentially to understand both kind of whatever the client needs. Usually it's like fate and what their fated career is, what their soul purpose is, what their soul really desires, looking at that both in the birth chart and in tarot, and then just talking. I think coaching would apply to me too, and apply to my sessions as well, because then I, talk to them and I'm like, what do you want? Like, what does your soul desire? I like when you were like that juicy divine masculine energy, because truly the divine masculine wants you to have all of your desires and wants your needs to be really met in this way that you're seen in the world. You're fearless, you're out there, you're using your vitality and your energy to kind of magnetize people to you. And so we talk about all that in sessions. And then I also do programs. I have a Hades ritual group, which is amazing. And the people in there are so great. They're just transforming all the time. It's like a group coaching container, essentially. So we work with Hades every month. We do rituals to Hades. And then every week we're coaching in our group Discord, and it's so transformative. And I've watched like my clients in this particular container expand so much. I have another witch who is actually very feminine energy in the group, and she joined the group because she's like, I need more masculine in my life. And she ended up quitting her day job and just completely going all into her witchcraft business, and was just so inspired by like the group coaching container that allowed her to do that. And she had like her biggest launch ever, and it was just incredible to watch her do that. So yeah, I love that. Just big transformative energy.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing ever, when I can get someone to quit their job. Like my goal with every client is like, how can we get you to quit your job and do your own thing?
So I love that too. I love that too. It's like, I'm sorry it's not my fault, but it is my fault. What was I going to say? So how can we, the listeners, Sadie, myself, I notice you wear red a lot. And I imagine that's one way that you tap into Hades energy. Mm-hmm. Are there other like little things we can do to sort of call him to us, or like get that divine masculine in our lives more? Maybe lighting more fiery, pointy candles.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I love red. I have my ascendant sign, like basically my ascendant. It's at the 5th degree, like in my chart, and that's like the Leo degree. And that's why I feel like I wear so much red and I have like this like kind of mane of hair, because it's like that Leo energy. So even though I'm like super Saturnian, very Capricorn, I have a Capricorn sun rising, and total first house Capricorn energy, I think the Leo is coming out in that degree. And I think it is a really great way to channel masculine energy for sure. Yeah, I love that. I love using the personal style, the glamour to get that across. I think that's a great way to do it every day. I really like having like a workout practice that energizes me on a daily basis. I used to do like competitive boxing, and I don't anymore because I like got a concussion and I can't, like, I need my mind, I need my brain to work properly. But yeah, I used to fight people like all the time.
Wow.
And that was a really awesome way for me to channel that. At the time, it was, I was like, you know, I was younger. I was like 19, 20, 21 when I was doing competitive boxing, and it was a little shadowy, I guess you could say at the time. I wasn't really doing it for the right reasons. I was really like overexerting myself and loved to get all my aggression out punching people. It was like so fun. But I am going to start boxing again soon because I'm like, you know what? I need that energy back in my life. I need a little bit more of that. And I think it's going to be really healing for me to go back into it. I'm 24 now. And so I took, you know, I haven't boxed for like 3 years after I stopped competitively after my concussion. And so I'm really excited to do that again. Really just any daily practice that gets you out of your comfort zone. I recently started like going on Bumble BFF and just like meeting random people. And that's been so fun. That's been a really good like masculine energy thing of just going out and meeting people and having a good time and getting myself out of my comfort zone. So anything daily or weekly that just gets you a little bit out of the shell, I think can be helpful.
I love that. Me and Sadie were talking about like edges. Like we all have sort of our edges of where like we go to in certain situations, in anything, in everything in life. And I love so that Hades energy is like bumping up against an edge of where you feel comfortable and then just pushing it a little bit. Ooh. And then assessing how you feel, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
And then deciding if you want to keep going.
I love that. And Hades, like, you know, he is a fairly reclusive guy. He doesn't really come up out of the underworld very often. He just kind of very much stays in his lane, has his job to do. I feel like he's very Capricornian in that way, that he just he has his work and he's not really interested in anything but his work and what he's here to do. And so the masculine energy that we're tapping into here, I think is a little bit more like solar, a little bit more maybe like Apollo or Aries or Zeus energy. And I think, you know, when we're talking about just the divine masculine in general, that's what I think of. I think of like all of them together, but they all have different archetypes. And I like to kind of think of it as like the different points of the body. Like I feel like I see Hades very much as like the root energy. He's the stable one that keeps the whole pantheon going. You know, they wouldn't exist without him. There wouldn't be a place for the mortals to go when they die. And he just really keeps the whole train running. And he's kind of always, you know, phonic in the underworld. And then as you kind of rise through the body, there's different points. Like I feel like the solar plexus area is very much like that Aries Mars energy of that I'm channeling when I'm boxing. And I think it's really, when you're cultivating a divine masculine practice, it's good to kind of have those different types of energy that you're working with. And it can be helpful even to look at those points in your birth chart, like where's your Mars in your birth chart, where's Pluto, where's Jupiter. These are all divine masculine archetypes that you can really like look at your chart and go like, okay, so my Jupiter's in it's his natural house in the 9th house, which means, you know, maybe I should do some more spiritual expansion and channel the masculine through me taking risks in my spirituality and expanding that. So there are different tricks you can do to see, you know, where you should channel yours.
I like this sort of like integration that you do. And we were wondering, like, do you mix the tarot with the Greek mythology and like, do you do anything like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's like perfect, because that's awesome. Yeah. I've been doing that a ton just in my client work and my personal practice. And I noticed that there really wasn't a lot of information about that. And I just like, especially when I started my business, I started my tarot business in college, and I went to college for philosophy and English. And so I was doing a lot of like maybe not translating myths, but I was doing a lot of like analyzing, that's probably the better word, myths, and reading the translations. And I was also reading tarot on like the weekends in Salem and in the Boston area. And I noticed then that there was this huge connection. I was like working on a paper on the Iliad, and I was like, why isn't there more of this integrated into tarot? And so since then, I've been creating my own system of like interpreting tarot through the Greek myths. And I'm actually running a course on that. I'm going to start launching it really soon. It's probably already out by the time you guys are listening to this. And yeah, it's called Asphodel Academy, Asphodel Tarot Academy. And you get to learn all about tarot through the Greek myths. We're going through everything. We're starting with the World card, which is Gaia. She's the goddess of Earth, and she's the world. And it's interesting because she's the last major arcana card. And we're starting with her, and we're working backwards through the major arcana, ending with the Fool, who is Dionysus. He's the youngest of the Olympians, and he has this whole story of, he's got a lot of mythology around him. Dionysus is kind of an important character, but it's interesting that he's the last one. He's the almost like the child of the Greeks, of the Greek Olympians. And then we're going through the minor arcana as well. And so it's going to be like a 4-month experience of both learning the Greek myths and learning tarot.
I know someone who wants to sign up.
It's like, that sounds really cool. No, I used to read the Greek myths. Like, it's been so long, but and obviously I like tarot. I do tarot too, but that sounds so cool and interesting.
Yeah,
I love that.
Maybe you just recruited me. Who knows? We'll see.
I think so.
I have so many. I need to like slow my roll because I keep signing up for all of the Witch and Famous everyone's things they put out, and I'm like, I've been participating in too many different courses because everyone's so amazing and has such amazing stuff, and I'm like, I need to be a part of it all.
Yes, I know.
A lot of the guests that come on the next day, Sadie will be like, I got the course.
I know.
I'm like,
our
you're
last
so great.
Guest, Destiny, about her master class. Everyone,
amazing.
That's so funny.
You know what? We have amazing guests.
Yeah. I know, and we just like you hook us, and then we want more.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I know I'm the same way. The only things I buy, like as a Capricorn, is I invest in my business and I like thrift shop. Those are like my two favorite things to buy. It's like a bargain and large business investments.
I love it. So you live in Salem. I have a funny anecdote to tell you about Salem, Massachusetts. My boyfriend, Craig Conant, his ancestor, Roger Conant, is like the founder of Salem, and there's a statue of him there.
What?
In I don't know if it's the town square or whatever.
Should we insert a photo?
We'll insert it here.
Oh my God.
Because he tells me this a few weeks ago. We've been dating for 2 years, and I'm like, you're dating a witch and you didn't think to tell me this. But yeah, sure enough, there's a statue there, and I guess you get, here's my cat Boo.
Baby Boo.
Come here. But he's wearing this big hat, and so people mistake the statue for a witch, but it's just his hat. He's not a witch.
I need to go find this and like take a selfie with it. That's amazing.
Yes.
You know what's so funny?
Roger Conant.
I love Craig Conant. Like, I found out like recently that you guys were dating, and I was like, I've been obsessed with Craig's like comedy for a very long time. Like, obsessed.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Like one of my favorites.
It's so weird. Yeah. He's a weird guy.
Yeah, I think I heard him on like Chatty Broads or something, and years ago,
a few times.
He comes on, and I'm just like, I'm obsessed with this. I just think he's so funny. I love his Trader Joe's stories.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, his family started Salem. I looked up. We couldn't find anyone that participated in the Salem witch trial.
I was going to say, I wonder.
I was like, did your ancestors murder the witches? And he was like, no. We tried to look it up and we didn't find anything. So
wow.
He's like dating you in this lifetime to like clear the
karma
lineage. Yeah.
There's a really great.
Like, so
I'm sorry. There's a really great movie that it's called I Married a Witch, and it's from like 1942. I think it's like an older movie, and that's the whole premise. Is like, this witch. She's this witch from the Salem witch trials, and she reincarnates, and she ends up marrying like the politician that has in Salem that has like connections to the Salem witch trials. And it's such a funny, it's like a, rom-com from the 40s, but it's such a good movie, like genuinely.
I think maybe I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's really cute, right?
Yeah. So cute.
I think I've seen that one. We have to watch it again. That's so funny. Yeah.
Oh
I know. I was like, I think because I said I'm so excited we have a Salem witch that's coming on Goddess Things. He's like, oh yeah, my ancestor founded Salem. I was like, what?
Now you bring this up?
Oh my goodness.
We usually towards like the end of the hour, we ask about like your paranormal experiences, strange experiences. I mean, we already know that you
have gone to the Underworld.
And grew up with Hades as your friend as a child. But how do we usually phrase this question?
Have you seen a ghost? Have you seen a UFO? Like,
yeah,
give
tell us about
spooky story.
All the weird stuff you've seen.
Oh man, there's so many. I can't even. I love this question though. You know what's so funny is recently I realized that I've had so many paranormal experiences, but I just think they're so normal that I don't even think of them. I'm just like I met someone new on Bumble BFF recently, and I was like, they were like, have you had ghost experiences? And I was like, yeah, like about 1 billion of them. But I just think that they're so normal because I'm just like, whatever, like it's such a normal time. Like literally the other night I was running like a master class and my Wi-Fi was cutting out, and I have like, a friend that is kind of like my mod basically. And she was like, Angelica, like there was this spirit like behind you. And he looked like Bram's like Stoker Dracula vibes. And she's like, she's a medium, but she's also kind of like helps me with stuff. And yeah, I was like, what? There's like Bram Stoker Dracula in my house? And she was like, absolutely. And I usually I have like claircognizance. I can kind of, get like images in my mind's eye and downloads, but I can't usually see ghosts. And so I was like, oh my God. So I'm trying to perceive this person and I'm trying to get him out of my house. And he was super flirty. I just kept getting these like downloads of like, I just think you're so interesting. I just want to like stay here with you. That's why I was watching your masterclass, because I was talking about like witchcraft. And he was like, I just, he was like from like the 1800s. I live right next to a graveyard in Salem, actually. So he's like,
so do ghosts just wander in and out as they please?
Yeah. And he was like, I just don't want to leave. Like, you're so interesting. And I'm like, yeah, no, like you gotta go. And so it took like quite a while to finally get him on his way. And I've had quite a few stories like that. But recently I had my first like alien thing happen.
Ooh. Yes.
Okay. So I'm not an alien person at all. And I've always just been like, whatever, it's the gods, it's the spirits, like aliens. Like I'm not interested in aliens. And I signed up for like a program with my friend Serena, the Lustful Witch, on Instagram. And it's kind of this like sex magic activation portal. And she's really like Kundalini awoken. She has like just that really like big Kundalini presence. And when I signed up for the program, like the same day I had this vision in my meditation. I just, I meditate all the time. And I had this vision of this alien planet, and I got a name. I like knew what the planet was called. And I was just like, what? And I had like such a clear vision of like my life in this planet. And wow, it was so strange. And then I looked up the name, like I typed into Google afterwards, and it was an actual planet that exploded and became the asteroid belt. Like the planet was real and it exploded.
What was it called?
Maldek.
Oh my gosh.
I've heard of that before. Oh my God.
I know. And
so you saw your alien past life.
Yes, I did. And it's so crazy because there's so much like starseed information out there, but it's all like for planets that are still planets, like, Andromeda and Sirius and all of those planets. There's a lot of starseed information about them, but I couldn't find a ton on Maldek. Eventually I did. And I was reading up about it, and it was like these people, their planet was destroyed, and apparently, I feel like I'm getting the download too, because I feel like I was there, that the planet was destroyed in this kind of war that was going on the planet, or maybe like another planet was kind of at war with Maldek, and the planet was exploded kind of by like maybe not necessarily a nuclear weapon, but some sort of weapon like that. And it was just, exploded itself. And there was a big, it doesn't exist anymore. And
right.
It's the asteroid belt now. And they were saying that so many people from that planet either have memories of that or reincarnate in this lifetime because of, like the Cold War and all that kind of stuff happening. That's these patterns that are, coming up. And I thought that was so interesting. And it also said like the people from Maldek are very masculine energy. They're very like Saturnian. There seems to be like kind of a lizard tie-in. I'm not like 100% sure about that, but there seems to be like dragons were on the planet or some sort of like lizard was kind of cohabitating the planet. And I'm like super cold like all the time. And yeah, I've always loved like lizards. And so I'm like, oh my God, like I was absolutely on this planet 100%.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I try not to I'm so interested in all of the different planets and what the people are like, but I try not to, even about like the different like gods and goddesses, I haven't researched much or learned much because I like to just like go into meditation, see what comes, and I've connected in that way where it's like, okay, I'm gonna like be open to information about myself or my past or whatever, and then look it up, and it's way more fun that way.
Yeah. Oh, it was so cool. Crazy. I was like, I can't believe I got this name, and I got this vision of like, it was funny because I wear a lot of red, and in the vision it was like this place that looked like it didn't have any windows and it was all red. And usually that's how I see the underworld, like where Hades lives. I see, big rooms of red. And when I take people to meditations to the underworld, I always have the same image. And so it was funny because originally in the meditation, I was like, okay, we're just in the underworld again. But then there was something so different about it. And I got the name of the planet and I was like, whoa, this is super fascinating. And apparently like, it's, this is just like random internet information, but apparently it said like 70% of Earth people are originally like from Maldek. It's like a pretty big like starseed population apparently, because when the planet exploded, all the kind of souls like came here. And I like that tie-in almost with Hades, because I always wonder like, okay, how does all this tie in together? And I'm like, it makes sense for me to kind of like have come from another planet and then have gone to the underworld or gone to like Hades's realm to where I could meet him, to where I could be like, wow, this is like a very similar environment, a very similar place. And so it makes sense to me that there is that tie-in of like the underworld feeling a lot like the planet and vice versa.
Oh my gosh.
So cool. You were able to recall the name of a planet you'd never heard of, and ghosts are just hitting on you. When you say you live next to a cemetery, how close are we talking?
There's like a fairly large like swamp and kind of backyard area. I guess it's not like a huge swamp, but like a swampy kind of area like next to a pond. And then the cemetery is like across the water. So I would say like I can see the gravestones, like kind of like I can look out the window and see some of the graves. So
from like your bedroom window.
So fairly close.
That's so on brand for you.
Yeah, I love it.
You even came back in a life where you live facing Hades people.
Yeah.
The dead people.
I didn't know how to say it. Wow. Do you ever wander through there?
Yeah, I go for walks every single day in the cemetery. And I would love, like, if I was incarnated as like a strong man, I would 100% be like a landscaper, like at a graveyard. Like I would want to dig the graves. I would want to be involved. I just have such like a calling to that industry. And and eventually I do want to like be in, I'm not in a coven or anything. And I want to be in like a magical tradition so I can learn funerary traditions and rites and kind of actually perform like pagan funeral rites as like an ordained kind of pagan high priestess. And so that's definitely something I am working towards. I call myself the High Priestess of Hades because I've gotten this download from him, like that no human coven, no like, human clergy can tell me like how to like, can ordain me to work with him necessarily. And there's really like no coven that specifically works with Hades. And so he gave me the call about a year ago, like, I want you to do rites for me. I want you to hold groups that for devotees of me. I want you to be my high priestess. And then, you know, in order to do funeral rites that are like legal in America, you know, you have to be like ordained like a clergy person. And so I'm pretty sure, at least, I think there are like death doulas as well that can do that. But that's definitely what I'm working towards the next 5 years. I hope to, and hopefully in 5 years, be doing that kind of work.
So when you were little, were you interested in death? Like, were you asking about, I know you said like you saw the corpse bride and you were like, oh my God, like you kind of like felt at home.
Yeah.
So were you like a spooky kid that was like always asking your parents about like death and stuff? I just have this image of you.
Yeah.
Being like obsessed with this.
I feel like I was a spooky kid. For sure. I was always like in a book or like in a video game. I was always very like in another world when I was a kid, and I loved Halloween. Oh man, yeah, I definitely was spooky. And yeah, I've always had like, I always wanted to work in some sort of psychopomp industry. Psychopomp is like, you know, helping souls in and out of the underworld or the afterlife. And so for a while I worked as a birth doula, actually, and I didn't like love it. But I was like, maybe I should just be a midwife. Like maybe I should just go all in. And I eventually was like, no, like, you're not supposed to be on the birth side of things. You're supposed to be on like the death side of things. But that was a lot scarier to me at the time. This was like in my early 20s. And I was like, I don't know, like I can do birth because like I identify as like feminine and, you know, she, her. And I'm like, I feel like that's more like my lane. Like, I don't know. I just always felt like the death industry was like, at least in Massachusetts, you have to be like the son of like a third generational like mortician in order to be qualified. It's like, so it is very patriarchal industry. Yeah. So yeah, it always kind of, I've always been wanting to work in the death industry, but in my own way. And so I'm kind of carving out my own job in it. And it's funny because I have a Scorpio midheaven, which like the midheaven in the chart is your career marker. And that's what I do when I look at people's fate and their fated career in my earthwork sessions. I always look to the midheaven to kind of tell the story of that. And mine's in Scorpio, and it's like literally perfect for me because it's working in death and also being a professional like tarot reader and occultist, and it just has the whole tie-in. So
I want a reading with you, and I want to do your tarot mythology course.
I know. I want to know
all of my money, Angelica.
My midheaven, and let's look at my card. I feel the same way.
Okay. Are we at an out? We'll wrap up soon, but I have a final question. Maybe you have more questions. I just have so many questions.
I know, you're amazing.
So you mentioned a death doula, and it's something I've heard of before, and I know you're kind of carving your own space out of that. But like, what does a death doula do, and like what is it that you want to do that is kind of like that, or like might be a little different?
Yeah, and so basically doula, like the root of the word doula is a Greek word, and it actually means like servant. And in ancient Greece, they would call like the servants, I suppose, or like the servant class doulas. And so it's an interesting term because we hear it being used in birth, like as a birth doula and as a death doula. So it literally means like servant of whatever the industry is. So when you're a birth doula, you're helping women give birth. And it's a very like metaphysical job in the sense that I'm not doing anything medical. I'm just helping the woman or the person that's giving birth breathe through the experience and make sure it's a very, like as much as possible, a very uplifting experience for her. That's kind of the role. There's a lot of comfort measures happening there. It's also very hands-on, physical, super difficult. Like, you know, you're literally there while the person's giving birth for hours, and you're just giving all your energy to them. And then on the other end, the death doula, or sometimes it's called Thanadoula because Thanatos is the god of death. So the Thanadoulas are the servants of death. They're there to help someone that is dying. So we see it used a lot in hospice and in, the hospital kind of chaplains will have volunteers or have death doulas come in to help people that maybe don't have their family with them while they're passing on, or just kind of, sometimes they also talk to the families afterwards and help with like grief counseling and that kind of thing. And it is more like, they're not necessarily therapists. It is much more like a clergy role. So it's more metaphysical understanding of death and what's going on there.
Okay.
I just think it's a beautiful thing to be able to talk about dying and death in the underworld in general, to do it the way that you do it, to make it something empowering, to make it something intriguing, something almost even a little like
sexy.
Yeah, there's something kind of sexy about the way you do it. And we're all going to go at some point, and you know, nobody knows for sure exactly what happens, but it's the only thing we can get. Hello, Boo.
Oh, Boo's trying to play with your hand movements.
It's the only thing we can guarantee in our lives, you know, is that at some
we're all
point
born and we all die.
we're going to go. And so I just think the world definitely, like, it's a very beautiful thing that you are doing what you're doing, and that even if maybe other people or your own doubts ever came up and were like, this isn't an ordinary path, like you were like, no, like this is some bigger work and some important work and some bigger magic. So I'm so happy we know you and we got to share you with everybody today.
Gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. For a long time, I was very confused about what my career was going to be. And I think it's because I have kind of a strange career calling and just in general, a strange calling. And that's why I was always like on the edge of it. Like maybe I should, you know, I'll be a doula, and I'll you know, do competitive boxing, and I'll just do all these kind of strange like things that are on the fringes of what most people do as a career. And, you know, still to this day, I'm a tarot reader, which is pretty on the fringes of what people do.
Yes.
And that's just, that's where I'm comfortable. And that's where I am comfortable with change and transformation. And I think I'm perfect for the death industry.
You are. You're just fabulous. And I think everyone should. Oh yeah, where can everybody find you and follow you and stay up to date?
Yeah, give us a quick rundown of like how to work with you, your Instagram, your website, all of that, because I'm sure all of our listeners are as eager as us to work with you after this.
For sure. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Angelica Cresci. And my website is riverstyxwitch.com, and it's like river Styx from the underworld, so it's STYX, riverstyxwitch.com. And yeah, I'm doing my Greek mythology through tarot program. It's called Asphodel Tarot Academy. And that, you know, I'll have the links to that on my website as well as on my Instagram. You can check more about it. And then I have my earthwork sessions where we look over your fate and your fated career, both in the birth chart and through tarot, and kind of interpret what your soul desires and what you're destined to do in this lifetime, what Hades is kind of wanting you to accomplish. So when you come to the underworld, you're happy and everything's good. And so, yeah, that's a really popular way to work with me. And then I have a couple other readings and sessions as well. And I'm bringing back House of Hades Society, which is my ritual group for Hades and group coaching container in October. So that is coming back for everyone that wants to connect deeper with Hades.
Wow, so exciting. And we'll link everything in the show notes. So whether you're on YouTube or listening on a podcast, just go and we'll have all of Angelica's links there. And yeah, any last
I just think what you're doing is profound, and I think that you're always, no matter what you do and how it moves, because I do think it's gonna keep evolving in different ways, you'll always stay really true to yourself in this really true part of you.
Well, you have Hades there to tell you, no, this is how you live your best life. I love that.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Of course. Thank you for that prophecy. That's beautiful.
That is my prophecy for you. It just feels a very beautiful journey you're on. So you should see how Boo is lying right now, by the way. It's like she's like eyes are closed, but she's like clawed it. She's like, I'm relaxed, but I'm holding on. So funny. She's got to hold her horses because this interview was so fun.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you. We'll see everyone next week.
All right. Bye.
All right. We're good.